Join us every weeknight at 9 p.m. Central Standard Time, 10 p.m. Eastern. The Intrepid radio program, a Scotty Roberts Productions broadcast.
Hey folks, welcome to the program. This is Scotty Roberts. It is Wednesday night. That's Wednesday, the 23rd of October. We are 13 days from the presidential election. Thought it would never come, didn't we? Now it's going to be the longest 2 weeks, I think, in history. But this is my show, the Intrepid radio program, right here on my YouTube channel for the time being. We are a podcast instead of a radio show, but we'll still call it a radio show. And if you're not over on the YouTube channel, go to youtube.com/Scotty Roberts. And there you can see the podcast and at the same time join the chat room, which is inhabited, infested might be the wrong word, with the fellow Intrepids. Just a few of you over there right now. I see Monica S. Good to see you. Evening to you as well. Field Guy. He asked, did she ever have any wheels? In response to the title of tonight's show. And I'm going to tell you something. What you're going to get out of this program tonight is me opining, which is what I normally do. I will opine. I will give you facts where I have them. I will read specific articles where I have them. And there's actually an article somebody sent me that I have now lost where that was. So there's a part of this show, if I find it, I'll bring it up while I'm talking here. But the big question we're going to be asking tonight is, are the wheels falling off the Kamala Harris campaign? And the reason I ask that is for several different things that have taken place over the last few days, especially the last week. If you have tuned into this show at any time in the last 2 weeks, we've had Professor Bauer on, who has talked about things that he has seen and things that he finds are maybe rooted in the spiritual end of things, but finding that, and by the way, coinciding with facts of whether or not this Harris campaign is going to make it to the very end. I think she will make it to the end. The big question is, what's going to be the outcome? And we'll get into that in just a few minutes here. And I want to invite you all to come on over to my TikTok channel if you have not been there already. Some of you don't like TikTok. I had some problems with it, with the whole Chinese thing and all of that. But really, I don't care right now. There is an American company. I'm not even going to get into it. So I do daily tarot readings over on my TikTok channel. And if you are here watching from TikTok, I don't see any of you, of course, in the chat room. But if you're here watching and you would like to, and you like the, if you're here watching, it's because I've said that we do this show Monday, Wednesday, Friday. But the last couple of weeks, I've been kind of in and out. And so if you are here, welcome from my TikTok channel. I see there's a lot more of you listening than there are in the chat room. I appreciate that. If you want to come and share a piece of your mind, if you want to give me a piece of your mind, you can do that over on the YouTube chat room. Now, I'm only going to say this, I'll say this now. If you are in the Facebook channel or the what other channels do I have? The Instagram channel, those, the X channel, those are all the places you can leave comments there, but nobody in the main chat room will see them, and you won't see anybody's comments from the main chat room unless you are in the YouTube channel. So that's why I promote that. Just go on over. I've set a link up over in the Instagram channel. And Jack Shoot, good to see you over there. I see that you are in the audience on the Instagram channel. Nice to have you, brother. Over here, we've got Field Guy and Monica S. so far in the chat room. And you know what I think happens? It's because I've had so many days that I have not done the broadcast in the last couple of weeks. People aren't sure if I'm going to be here. So watch for the announcements. And if you see Arlene, evening to you as well. And there are so many things I'd like to talk about, so many things to catch us up on things and all of that. But suffice it to say, the last couple of weeks I have been a little in and out due to just having some physical junk going on and not feeling good overall. Being overly tired, perhaps a little exhausted, and different problems with my back and things like that. And I hate to use that as an excuse, but there are times where I come to the end of the day and I've intended to do a show and I'm just like, I can't do it tonight. I just got to bail. And that's the way it's been the last couple of weeks. I never thought ever in my life I would find myself in a position where I'd be like that. I remember when I was younger thinking, well, when I get older, maybe I'll just fight it. I'll just still do. But there are days you're just like, I just got nothing left to fight that with today. So I'm not going to do it. The thing with my eyes has really bothered me. And while the eyes itself aren't doing anything to me, as you can see, it's the fact that they aren't healed up. My eyes feel really tight and really tired, and because of the way they feel, and because of that, it makes my brain tired. And so and I've had a lot of little stuff going on. So good evening, Roger Rabbit. Good to have you over there in the chat room. Hello to everyone, he says. And so it's good to have you here, Roger. I hope you're doing well tonight. And anybody else coming on over into the other channels, if you want to chat with us, come on over to the YouTube channel. You can even call in. Not right away. I'll give the high sign when it's time to call in. But for now, let's just proceed forward. Like I said, Roger says, too bad it wasn't physical activities utilizing your junk that had been wearing you out instead of physical junk being the culprit. Ain't that the truth? It's like, yeah. I'd like to be worn down that way for a while. That'd be kind of nice, huh? And so I'm trying to think if there's anything else I want to hit before we start rolling into this topic tonight. And I can't think of anything off the top of my head. I am going to kind of in the background, I want to find this post that someone made to me that had a link on it. And that link was something that was very interesting that I wanted to share with us all. Oh, maybe this is it. There, this is it. I found the link. So I hope that it's an article that I can draw from as opposed to, it's a video. So that's not going to help us any. So no video. I can't play the video. So let's just launch into this tonight right now for an inauspicious beginning to the show. I've got my new readers. I got these specifically just for the computer, so I don't have to stare down my nose through my bifocals. And they seem to be okay and doing all right. So one thing I want to start with, I saw something today from Matt Walsh. Now, if you're not familiar with who Matt Walsh is, he's a filmmaker. He does comedy. He is somebody that's been very outspoken. He's an American conservative political commentator. He's a podcast host. He's the host of the Matt Walsh Show and is personally with the American conservative website, The Daily Wire, which is Ben Shapiro's website. And he's authored 4 books and starred in the Daily Wire documentary films What is a Woman? And Am I Racist? Both very satirical, tongue-in-cheek looks at very what would I say? He's looking at issues that have become big questions throughout the last few years. Have you noticed, if you're older like me, meaning I'm in my 60s, pushing 64 very soon, and I look back to when I was in high school in the 70s and in the 80s, and in the 80s I was in college and seminary, and then throughout my life and my career, and I have seen things have changed in those years, as they should. Life moves on, we evolve, but I have seen things where these big questions that come into play in politics nowadays, the identity questions, these social media, these social questions that come up, the sexuality questions, all of those. We saw the beginnings of all of that stuff in the 70s when I was a kid, and we were told at the time it's gradualism. You will see a gradualism take place that will bring on a decline, and mostly from, here's another catchphrase nowadays, the last couple days, the enemies within, the things within our society that are dragging our society down. Now, it doesn't mean that you can't have, and I'm speaking in general terms here on purpose. There are things that if you are an adult and you want to adhere to them and hold them and believe them, that is your choice. But there are also things that when you start trying to push it on society in general, it becomes a bad thing. I will take this from the opposite point of view for a moment. Do you remember when they were doing the Defense of Marriage Act, the DOMA Act? They were trying to amend the Constitution. They wanted to amend, they being the religious right, conservative religious right, and this is several years ago now, 10 to 15 years ago. They were attempting to amend the Constitution of the United States to state that marriage is only recognized as being between a man and a woman. Now, no matter where you fall on that belief or that ideology, once you start making that a law, that to me is the beginning of a downgrade in our society. Meaning, I would rather allow somebody, allow is, I don't have to give anybody my permission, but I am a live and let live kind of guy when it comes to government, when it comes to our society, is that if you want to be a certain way and do a certain thing and act a certain way in your life, more power to you. Because you know what that does? It leaves me free to do the same on my side. If I have a certain moral compass that leads me in this direction and yours leads you in that, as long as you are not violating my rights or violating the rights of people in our country, you go right ahead. You know, your bedroom is your private domain. You do what you want to do in there. The way you believe about many different things is not the way everybody else is going to believe. And I think as soon as I started seeing the religious right, which was Christian in its foundational matter, wanting to turn the country into a Christian country, quote unquote, because that's what they believe God wanted them to do for themselves, to follow God, you can't force that on a nation. You cannot take that stance, even if you are right, even if you are a believer, even if you are somebody who says, I believe the Bible, I believe in God, I believe in Jesus Christ as my King, and so on and so on and so on, all the way down the line. You cannot impose that on all the people in the country. Because what do you become if you do that? You then become just like Sharia law, just like Muslim countries who force the people in their country, the women in their country, to wear a certain dress to hide their faces and their bodies and whatever. Once even a Christian society starts to do that, and they believe they're right because it's their belief system, but once you start to do that, you start to chisel away. What happens when different power takes place? Different power structures are in place. Christianity could be targeted just as easily as any other religion. So, maximize your face, Scotty. Oh, it says Rendell Flag. Oh, thanks, Rendell. I suppose I could do that. I get to talking sometimes, and I forget to do that. So, there's my face. Oh, and the music, there's still music playing? See, I don't hear it on this end for some reason. Let me check it. Good grief. Sorry about that, guys. There it is. Oh, now I could hear that very faintly in the background. My sound is so low, I did not hear that playing. I hope that wasn't too much of a hindrance for anybody. Sorry about that, guys. Little technical glitch. I do not have a producer, and so nobody's saying, hey, your sound is down so low, you can't hear. You still have that background music from the introduction playing. So sorry about that, guys. I hope it wasn't interfering too much with what I was saying. And so did everybody catch what I was saying? Anybody, it might have been a little distracting, but anybody miss anything that I was saying because that music was playing? Let me know, and I'll repeat some points. But this is why I was against the DOMA Act, the Defensive Marriage Act. I was against a Christianizing of the Constitution, meaning having a Christian religious group want to create an amendment to the Constitution that falls in line with not every Christian sect or denomination, but falling in line with general Christian morality. You start ruling that way in this country, you're destroying the Constitution as much as somebody who pushes Sharia law would be destroying it. So, and I would hope that you'd stand against any kind of Sharia law movement to try to amend our Constitution. And if you do, you would have to stand against it. I remember having a civics teacher in Bible college who said, you as Christians should be willing, and this was, of course, this is rhetoric, but he was stating it this way: you should be willing as a Christian to give your life, if necessary, to defend the rights of somebody who doesn't believe what you believe. And I remember being the first time I had heard anything like that as an 18-year-old kid. And some people were shocked at hearing that. It's like, no, you should be willing to defend the rights of other people to believe what they want to believe, because you know what? Then that comes right back to you and allows you to believe what you want to believe. You start Xing off religions, or you start trying to govern by a certain moral code embedded within Christianity, it's going to bite you in the ass. It's going to bite you crisscrossed in the ass. So, thank you, Roger Rabbit. I see that. Thank you for making note of that to me, Randall Flagg. I appreciate it. It's a subtle little button on the side to diminish the music. And when I go into the chat room area, it pushes that aside so I don't see it. So sorry about that. And so all of this to say that I think that there are things that, what was this? Oh, there you go. Kamala already came out and said that if she loses, she's going to challenge the results and keep it tied up. Well, you know, Trump challenged the results, and they all said that that was heinous of him, that he shouldn't be able to do that. And so, but everybody on the left has challenged results over and over and over again. If she challenges, let her. It's not necessarily going to keep it tied up. She would have to do, and you know what? But that's par for Kamala Harris's course. As the title of tonight's show indicates, I'm going to throw that graphic up for just a second again. The wheels are falling off the Kamala Harris campaign. And you know how you can tell? Look at the things she's talking about, the things she's doing, the statements she's making, and you'll very easily see it. Now, I put up something on my Facebook this morning. I started talking about Matt Walsh, and I got a little sidetracked describing something, but he's a conservative. He has made these films, What is a Woman? And Am I Racist? He's a writer. What does he say here? When someone has a big story, they just drop it. They don't hype it up ahead of time. Big stories can stand on their own without the teaser. Whenever you hear about a big story that will be breaking at some unspecified time in the future, you can assume it's a dud. It almost always is. That's something that he said. You can find Matt Walsh on his Instagram and on Facebook. Well, he said something in a post this morning that I reposted on my wall, my Facebook wall. And we were talking about this a little bit on Kenny B's show this morning, and Morning Coffee with Ken, with Kenny B. And here's what Matt Walsh said, and it's all regarding the big McDonald's thing. Now, have any of you not seen or heard anything about the McDonald's thing? Hold on. Woo! No sneeze button here without wrangling, and it snuck up on me quick. Has anybody here not heard about Donald Trump stopping at the McDonald's for a couple of hours the other day and doing about 15 minutes of work, making French fries, selling at the drive-up window? There's been so much criticism on that, and guess where the criticism is coming from? Of course, it's all from the Democrats. It's all from the left, because it was just a stunt. People are saying, "Oh, that's so phony. It was a stunt." I go, "No, it was a stunt. Please say it isn't so. Of course it was a stunt. Don't be so dim-witted." And that's me calling names now. I said to somebody the other day, "You're awfully pedantic." And they said, "Do you always insult people who differ with you?" I said, "No, we've just had a long conversation online. And finally you said something, you're being awfully pedantic. I think you can teach me something." And so as soon as you confront somebody for being stupid, finally, after being polite, are you always that way to people? No, well, yeah, people who act that way I am. I pointed out, I asked the question. So this whole McDonald's thing is, if you don't know it and you're living under a rock or in a closet and haven't heard about this, Trump stopped in Pennsylvania to a McDonald's where he went and served fries, and it was all for a little bit of very fun, tongue-in-cheek jibing Kamala Harris for saying she worked at McDonald's. And also, I think it was because he likes McDonald's. He's made no bones about it for all the time he's been in politics. He likes McDonald's. Remember when he had that team? Was it a basketball team or a football team at the White House? And he served them all, instead of a feast, he served them all McDonald's. He ordered hundreds of Big Macs and burgers and stuff like that and fries. And because he said, college kids will like this. And he thought it was fun. Well, he went in, and of course they had to set it up ahead of time a couple of weeks ago. I had heard two different stories on that. I've heard that it was the owner of the franchise in that area in Pennsylvania that had wanted him to be there and had asked him. I think it was the other way around, though. I've heard a couple of different ways that Trump went in and said, "I'm going to go in," and he asked permission. The guy loved having him there because he supported him. And that it was, somebody said, all the people coming through the drive-thru and buying food from Donald Trump, they were all actors. And you know what? People make statements like that, not knowing that that's the facts, but they make those statements. "Oh, those were just all actors." Oh, what makes you think they were actors? Well, that's what they do. I said, I hate doing it. Do you have a source for that? What's the source of your information on that? Because my understanding is that they were all people that were there, and that the Secret Service even had to screen them before they went through the drive-through for safety. Duh. But that does not make them actors. There were some genuine people in there. Hey, Scott Allen, good to see you. And so Donald Trump's, and there were 7,000 people that gathered at that McDonald's, outside the McDonald's, to watch this all. Well, they had to close. I can't believe that they let him do that, and they closed down the McDonald's. Oh, such bullshit. You know, folks, if there's a publicity stunt or a political stunt that a candidate is pulling, if Kamala Harris went in to do a McDonald's, would she have had and worked there for a little while? Would they have shut down the restaurant? Maybe especially after they tried 2 attempts to assassinate her. Yeah, I think it would have been the other way. I even said, hey, the other way around, folks, you'd be loving it. And people laughed at me and cussed me out and stuff, because I said, if it was Kamala doing it, you'd have praised her for this. And so Matt Walsh, back to him again. He wrote something about this, and I'm going to read this to you. It's a 3-paragraph statement that he made. He said, "The McDonald's stunt demonstrates once again that Donald Trump is the master at hijacking the news cycle." Think he didn't do that? The news cycle absolutely was monopolized by Donald Trump visiting McDonald's. Matt goes on, he's extremely good at retail politics, in part because he's been in public life for so long and in so many different contexts. And here, he's doing both at once. This is a unique talent, especially in this presidential race. The reason that Kamala Harris couldn't pull off this McDonald's stunt is the same reason she had to skip the Al Smith dinner. She has none of Trump's redeeming qualities. Donald Trump, by contrast, knows how to be a real person and have fun. Now, by the way, let me interject here. If you hate Trump, nothing he does is genuine to you. Nothing he does makes you like him. Nothing he does is funny. Nothing he does is out of a sense of humor. Nothing he does is real. He doesn't do anything for fun, because you have to continue to demonize him and dehumanize him in order to make him as bad as you want people to think he is. Going on, Matt says, if Kamala tried the same stunt, it would come off painfully fake and awkward. The key is that Trump doesn't pretend to be a working class guy with lots of experience doing jobs like this. He knows he's a fish out of water, and that's what's fun about it. Voters pick up on the authenticity and respect it. That's why 7,000 people were gathered outside the McDonald's. It's why every interaction Trump had inside the McDonald's was friendly, entertaining, and upbeat. And by the way, did you notice he's still on his white shirt, his cufflinks, and a tie? He didn't put on a hairnet, but he was only working at the fryer for a few minutes. So he didn't do that. It's not like he was serving the world there, folks. I've had people criticizing because he didn't put on a hairnet. Well, you got to find something wrong with what he did, right? Matt Walsh goes on. Today, the Kamala Harris campaign is still asking how this happened. They're asking how a photo op like this could immediately garner tens of millions of views on every social media platform. They're asking why everyone's saying that the images from the McDonald's look like a Norman Rockwell painting, and how they'll end up in the history books, these pictures. The answer is clear. This election pits one of the most authentic candidates in the modern history against one of the most inauthentic. And the desperate reaction from Harris's campaign shows that they now realize that which is which. So there is a take by Matt Walsh on the Donald Trump McDonald's stunt. Was it a stunt? Well, of course it was a stunt. It was a positive stunt. It was a fun stunt. It was a campaign stunt. It was a political stunt. But at least he wasn't dressed in white like Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez when she went down to the border a couple of years ago and cried and wept on camera in front of the gate and then went back home. That's a photo op too. Was it genuine? You'll know by looking at it. So it was a political stunt. Hell yeah. Do you think for a minute, I said to somebody yesterday, I said, do you think for a minute that they were just driving down the road to their next engagement in Pennsylvania? And Trump goes, hey, there's a McDonald's. I like McDonald's very much. Let's stop there and see if they'll let me serve fries. That's not what they did. It took a whole lot of arranging ahead of time. And people are saying, some of the critics were also saying, what about the people who had to not come to work that day and they weren't getting paid? Donald Trump stole money right out of their pockets. Well, I think they probably got that arrangement taken care of, is my guess. The owner probably asked some people not to come in, or he said, when you come in, come in at 2 instead of 12 today, and we'll get it figured out because of what happened there. Someone posted they got an extra chicken nugget from Trump for their 6 pieces, which was happy. And they were happy. Yeah. And he packed those fries, didn't he? So he says there's 91 fries in that little sleeve, right? And so he's gone through all sorts of criticisms. Why does he go through those criticisms for doing this? Is it because it's genuine, the criticisms? Or is it because people are looking for ways to continually express their Trump derangement syndrome by finding ways to dehumanize him and demonize him in order to make their hatred work? This is carried over. Well, I don't know if it's, which side do you think it's carried over from? Is it the supporters of Kamala Harris and the haters of Trump that have carried it over to Harris? Or has Harris and the Democrats carried that over to the Trump haters? And by the way, I think this is a good point to say. I have even family members that are voting for Kamala Harris. And I have to say, some of them are people that I thought were very intelligent. And I will say this. If there are intelligent people out there voting for Kamala Harris, I need to know your reason, because it's not because she can be a better president. By far. You have to be voting for one reason only, and that's that you don't want Trump in the office, which is probably one of the most horrible ways to vote for somebody. You'd vote for a cabbage. 4 years of Biden. Case in point, you'd vote for a cabbage before you'd vote for the guy that you think is terrible. And all I've seen ads lately coming out just in the last couple of days. I've seen these ads that are women that are talking to the camera, talking about how Trump raped them or how Trump sexually abused them, and nothing was ever done about it. And they were too afraid to do it 30 years ago when it happened, or 20 years ago, or 15 years ago, even some of it. And you know what it comes down to? I just don't believe them anymore. I'm not part of the Me Too movement. Just because a woman makes a claim or an accusation does not mean that claim or that accusation is true. I listen to Kamala Harris and the things that she says. Her claims and accusations aren't true. And listen, remember all the bullshit, the utter bullshit about how if a woman says it, it must be true. Well, what about the woman that's come out and made accusations against Kamala Harris's husband? Now, that's his business. That doesn't have anything to do with what she does. But is she consistent? Does she say, whatever this woman accused my husband of, it's true because she's saying it? She wouldn't go out and put her name out there and her face out there if it was not true. She's not doing that, though. They're brushing that under the rug. They don't want to have to answer questions about it or talk about it. Now, just like, Hunter Biden's laptop. To me at the time, and even now a little bit, that has very little to do with Joe Biden running until you find out on that laptop all kinds of information that links Biden to inside problems. Things that could be, that if it were Trump doing it, it'd already be called treason. It'd be all over the place. So I listened to Kamala Harris and the things that she says. And just today, something came up. Do you know that Harris calls an ex-aide of Trump's, that she calls the ex-aide's fascism warning about Trump a window into who Donald Trump really is? Now, Vice President Kamala Harris accused former President Donald Trump of wanting unchecked power. Now, isn't this the thing they've been saying all the way along? Well, this was just yesterday. And she's accused him of unchecked power as a Democratic nominee. And she seized on remarks from John Kelly, who is Trump's former White House chief of staff, warning about Trump's fascist tendencies and his past admiring statements about Adolf Hitler. So if you haven't seen the video clip, go look it up. She's talking about this yesterday. She said this is a window into who Donald Trump really is, from the people who know him best, from the people who worked with him side by side in the Oval Office and in the Situation Room, Harris said in remarks on Wednesday from the Vice President's Naval Observatory residence in Washington. And the bottom line is this: we know what Donald Trump wants, she said. He wants unchecked power. The question in 13 days will be, what do the American people want? Now, the first thing I'm going to do is tell you, are you starting to see desperation? Desperation comes when the wheels start falling off your wagon, to link it into the show's title for tonight. Now, over 3 recorded interviews with the New York Times, John Kelly said Trump, the 2024 Republican nominee, met the definition of a fascist, would govern like a dictator if allowed, and had no understanding of the Constitution or the concept of rule of law. Certainly, the former president is the far right area. He's certainly an authoritarian, admires people who are dictators. He has said that, Kelly told the Times in a story published on Tuesday. So he certainly falls into the general definition of fascist for sure. Now, this is John Kelly's opinion about Trump. Kelly said Trump on multiple occasions remarked, Hitler did some good things too. Well, let's just take that statement all by itself. You know, Hitler did do some good things for Germany. Prior to the Holocaust, the final solution, killing 6 million people, annexing Poland, all of that stuff. He tried to institute some good things for the economy for Germany. So Kelly said Trump on multiple occasions remarked, Hitler did some good things too. Well, he did. That's statement all by itself. If you took me making that statement and didn't put it into any context about what we were talking about or history and just said, listen, Scotty said Hitler did some good things too, you go, wow, that's pretty evil. So Harris, in a brief address added to her schedule on Wednesday afternoon, accused Trump of being increasingly unhinged and unstable. You notice they're doing a lot of that lately. They're calling Trump unhinged and unstable. They haven't used the word dementia. Somebody said to me when we were talking about this, accusing me of saying, she goes, I never said Trump was dementia. I said he's unhinged. And I said, I didn't say you said that. So the left is so overeager because they're in desperation mode. But she said Trump was increasingly unhinged and unstable. It's a phrase she's turned to repeatedly in the final weeks of the 2024 campaign before the November 5th election to warn of a second Trump presidency. You saw her the other day on video screaming, Trump will never stand behind the seal of this president of the United States ever again, and we must stop that, blah, 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 blah. Harris went on, it's clear from John Kelly's words that Donald Trump is someone who, I quote, certainly falls into the general definition of fascists, who in fact vowed to be a dictator on day one and vowed to use the military as his personal militia to carry out his personal and political vendettas, Harris said. Now, of course, we all know that is all woefully out of context. Her writers and her staff all know that that's not true. But what are they doing? They keep repeating the things that keep getting corrected over and over again. Nah, that's not right. That's not what he said. That's not how he said it. That's not the context. Here, let's correct the context. And then they repeat it again tomorrow. That is pure Saul Alinskyism. That is making your opponent, trying to make your opponent defend himself for lies that you tell. Therefore, wasting his time defending himself rather than going forward. Now, I haven't seen Trump doing a lot of defending of this. He just kind of lets it go nowadays. He's just moving on, doing his thing. So Harris called it deeply troubling and incredibly dangerous that Donald Trump would invoke Adolf Hitler, the man who was responsible for the deaths of 6 million Jews and hundreds of thousands of Americans, end quote. That Donald Trump would invoke Adolf Hitler. She knows he didn't do that. And she's going on the word of John Kelly. Oh, John Kelly said. So Kelly is just one of many former Trump White House officials who have criticized him publicly, expressed concerns about his character, fitness for the presidency, argued that he's anti-democratic. Other examples include former Vice President Mike Pence, former Secretary of Defense Mike Esper, former Joint Chiefs of Staff Chairman Mark Milley, former National Security Advisor John Bolton, and former Attorney General Bill Barr. Now, Harris also referenced a separate report from The Atlantic, which quoted Trump saying, I need the kind of generals that Hitler had, according to two unnamed individuals. I wonder why they're unnamed. Donald Trump said that, this is a quote again from Harris, Donald Trump said that because he does not want a military that is loyal to the United States Constitution, he wants a military that is loyal to him. What are your thoughts on that, guys? The Trump campaign has denied Kelly's accounts and the Atlantic story. Now, Stephen Chung, a Trump campaign spokesman, slammed Kelly's account as debunked stories and said he had beclowned himself in a statement to the Times. Speaking of Kelly, Harris warned that in a second Trump presidency, people like John Kelly would not be there to be the guardrails against his propensities and his actions, end quote. So, what do you think of that? That, to me, when I start hearing this kind of stuff coming out in the campaign from somebody like Kamala Harris, the Vice President of the United States, who should know better than to put stuff like this out there, especially stuff that's been debunked, stuff that has over and over and over and over and over and over and over again been debunked, and she still brings it up. The Project 2025 thing being a perfect example. So many times, Trump has said he is not associated with Project 2025. He had nothing to do with it. People that used to work for him wrote it, but he had nothing to do with it. But she keeps repeating it anyway because she thinks, and she wouldn't repeat it if she didn't think it was useful to try to turn minds against Trump. Hey, Susie Q, good to see you. Hey, JP, good to see you in the chat room as well. And anybody else I missed along the way, Scott Allen, good to see you. Scott Allen says a female friend of mine is voting for Harris and mentions Agenda 2025 and the Handmaid's Tale and abortions being illegal, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Yeah, that's all they've got to go on. And they can't be honest about that because if they were to be honest about those debunked stories, they'd have no fodder left. All of their fodder is based on hearsay, out of context statements that were never made, and things that have been debunked all the way along. Just look at the whole Charlottesville thing where Trump said, how many years ago was that? 7 years ago? Said when they were tearing down statues of Confederates in Charlottesville, Trump was saying when there were protests, he says there's good people on both sides. And they're all over him because saying he's anti-supremacist because the Proud Boys were there, all of this. And Trump wasn't referring to them. He was referring to the people in the argument whether or not a statue should be left standing or not, the details of that argument, that political argument. And he said, well, there's good people on both sides of that argument. He wasn't saying there was good people there protesting on both the white supremacist side and the non-white supremacist side. But it's still being used. Even after Snopes came out a few weeks ago, even Snopes came out and said, that's out of context. That's not what Trump said. And they explained it. But the Kamala Harris campaign still used it after that. Why? They are in desperation mode. They have nothing else to go on. That's why. I have some other things here. I know. Let's see. I wanted to get to certain points that were made here. Oh, this is something very different. This is a different article I wanted to bring up. And since I have it up in front of me, I'm going to ask you about this. There's an article that says smacks of blatant vote buying. Legal experts call Harris's proposals for black men unconstitutional. So this is a little shift of gears in here, but a Harris administration would face a significant constitutional challenge, said George Washington University law professor Jonathan Turley. And this is an article dated today. Harris is wanting support from black men, and she has to do it with her lack of accomplishments. So Vice President Kamala Harris released her Opportunity Agenda for Black Men. That's the title. Opportunity Agenda for Black Men. OABM, if you want to call it that. She released that just this week. But some of her proposals could be considered unconstitutional, according to the top legal analysts. Harris unveiled the 5-point plan last week, which includes get this now, it provides 1 million forgivable loans of up to $20,000 for black entrepreneurs and others who have historically faced barriers to starting a new business. Another proposal includes funding and capital for vocational training to help expand pathways for black men to get good paying jobs. Those aren't bad things in and of themselves. Let's go on. Programs that distribute resources based on economic disadvantage and race have lost challenges in court. One example of this involves a nonprofit that provided small business grants to exclusively Black female business owners. Another example includes a federal disaster relief program that gave preference to minority and female workers. A Harris administration would face a significant constitutional challenge in granting these kinds of loans on the basis of race. That's what George Washington law professor Jonathan Turley said. It's unconstitutional because eligibility for the money would be determined by race. And that's what Gregory Jarrett said. He's a news analyst for Fox News. Harris's proposal smacks of blatant vote buying. Now, Dan Fee is an attorney. Oh, it's nice. Be an attorney and have your last name be Fee, F-E-E. How appropriate. But Dan Fee is an attorney, political consultant, and president of the Philadelphia-based Echo Group, a crisis and communications firm that's represented high-profile clients like former Pennsylvania Governor Ed Rendell and Representative Donald Norcosa, who's a Democrat with New Jersey. Fee challenged these takes, insisting that it would stun him if policies such as those Harris rolled out for Black men were not widely vetted before they were proposed. If you want to attack the problem of poverty at its source, this is a smart policy, he said. In addition to the economics-focused policies for Black men, Harris's 5-point policy plan proposes legalizing marijuana at the federal level and establishes a national health equity initiative focused on Black men to study health challenges that disproportionately impact Black men. I got no problem with marijuana being legalized. Don't get me wrong. There are other entanglements with this. The latter effort, tailoring and providing services based on race, has been investigated by the Office of Civil Rights at the Department of Health and Human Services due to discrimination concerns. Could you imagine if Trump came out and said, I'm going to offer these programs only to white men? That would have to be a criteria on which you could be eligible for that program? Funded by the government? So the business grant for Black women was slammed as racially exclusionary in a federal court ruling. Now, the Biden administration proposals providing economic relief based on racial and gender identity groups have also faced challenges in court. For example, a federal judge earlier this year blocked an agriculture department disaster aid program that gave preferences to minority and female farmers, ruling it discriminated against white male farmers. Another federal program that sought to provide economic relief to restaurant owners following the COVID-19 pandemic and provided preference on the basis of gender and race met a similar fate in court. Now, Jarrett called the agriculture program clearly discriminatory against white farmers and argued that Harris surely knows her proposals will meet the same fate. But her immediate interest appears to be pandering for minority votes. Turley also pointed out that even if this policy is neutral on its face, it can still be struck down in court. Now, it can be challenged as applied, he said. That means that while the program is stated neutrally, it's being used in a racially discriminatory fashion. The University of Virginia is hit with a civil rights complaint. They were accused of racial discrimination against whites. Now, Turley said this means that even with qualifiers in Harris's proposals, which may cast a wide net of anticipated beneficiaries, it can still face legal challenges. The addition of these qualifying terms is meant to prevent a facial challenge, but that does not, however, prevent an as applied challenge. So Harris and her campaign have struggled to appeal to men, and especially black men, with one prominent Democrat strategist calling Harris's struggle with men a big problem for her. That was according to The Hill, by the way. So meanwhile, the black vote has also seemingly been a struggle for Harris, who's received less support from that portion of the electorate than Biden did at the same point during his 2020 campaign for the presidency. The Washington Post reported this week the Democratic National Committee launched a bus tour earlier this week, seeking to shore up support among this electorate heading into the final days of the election. So, what do you think of all that? The program of forgivable loans smacks of grants, which are similar to student loans that Biden is proposing to be forgivable, also making grants of them as well. And so the monies for both are taxpayer dollars. And only Congress can authorize both funding and forgiveness. So yeah, it sounds like a lot of buy-in votes there. What about the student loan issue of Biden's? How many? I'm just going to look it up. How much money has gone to student loan forgiveness? Let's see. Well, how about this? The U.S. Department of Education. That's my source on this right now. The U.S. Department of Education says the Biden-Harris administration approves an additional $4.5 billion in student debt relief for 60,000 public service workers, bringing total to over 1 million public servants. Latest relief under Public Service Loan Forgiveness, the PSLF program, brings total loan forgiveness approved by the administration to over $175 billion for more than 4.8 million Americans who can't pay their own bills. So the Biden-Harris administration announced, when was it? Just the date on this, October 17th. So that's just last week. The Biden-Harris administration announced the approval of approximately $4.5 billion in additional student loan relief. What do you think of that? This relief, which is the result of significant fixes in the administration, that the administration has made to the Public Service Loan Forgiveness Program, brings the total loan forgiveness approved by the administration to over $175 billion of your dollars, your taxpayer dollars. You know, I had a church when I was in college once write me for was it 750? No, it was 150. $150 to help me pay my college loan. And because I was doing some work in their church. $150. That's all that went to, that's the only thing I ever got toward my student loans, which weren't big anyway. Went to a small non-accredited private school. So there it is. So what do you think about the Sean strike? That's about what we gave to Ukraine. So what do you think about the Supreme Court coming down several months ago saying that Joe Biden was unconstitutional? He couldn't do that. He couldn't pay off student debt. But they ignored the Supreme Court decision and did it anyway. Now, getting back to the topic of the night, what makes this all seem to me as if the Harris campaign has the wheels falling off? Do you think to me it is and this is where I said this is the opinion portion of the show. I believe they're falling off because you are seeing Kamala Harris and her supporters and those her surrogates in candidating are candidating on campaigning are all going to these extremes to try to get people to turn away from Trump. And they're mostly preaching to the undecided. It's people who support Trump. People who hate Trump hate Trump. You've got that small unsupported or undecided minority in the middle. Is that who they're referring to? How many of you think that, by the way, that there are a hell of a lot more Trump voters out there than they're willing to say? The individuals are willing to say. Who are you voting for in polls? Well, I'm undecided. How many companies are not endorsing? Oh, that's another thing. Here's a little bit of a rabbit trail here, but look at the endorsements coming out. I just heard on the news while driving this afternoon that the Los Angeles Times, which has always been anti-conservative and always been anti-Trump, the Los Angeles Times stated today that they were not going to endorse Kamala Harris. They're just not going to endorse anybody. That's exactly what the Teamsters Union did. That's what some of these other organizations out there, we're just not going to endorse anybody. Well, if especially ones that are traditionally endorsing Democrats or leftists. So my first question that came to my mind almost immediately when I heard that news story is, well, set aside who they're endorsing. Why should a news organization be endorsing either candidate or any candidate? A news organization is supposed to be objective, journalistic objectivity, reporting the news. Now, they can write damning news about somebody that deserves damning news written, but should a news organization be endorsing either candidate? I don't think they should. And I would think that the ethics of that, for what they do in their existence as a news entity, should preclude them or prevent them from wanting to endorse anybody at any time, because they do not want to give the impression that they are biased. They want to give the impression that we are an organization that is journalistic integrity, and we don't endorse people because we write objectively about them all. Any news organization that comes out and openly endorses a candidate is in the wrong as far as I'm concerned. Did Fox News come out and endorse Trump? They got a hell of a lot of Trump supporters there, but I don't think they came out and endorsed him. Let me know if I'm wrong on that. Same with CNN. Did they come out and endorse Kamala Harris? I don't think they did. But I don't know that for certain. I didn't look it up. This just occurred to me, and I haven't really looked anything up on it. So, getting back to the Kamala Harris campaign, should Kamala Harris be saying the things she's saying in a campaign when she knows they aren't true? To me, that smacks of absolute desperation. I see a lot of things going on out there that has the wheels falling off the Harris campaign. You want to ask whether or not the Harris campaign is in trouble. Do you think they are? Do you think she's going to win? Do you think she can win without there being some kind of cheating? Do you think that Kamala Harris going negative, super negative, is her acting out of desperation. Do you think that's what that is? Do the Party of Joy, when did the Party of Joy become the party of negative campaigning? Why do you think Harris has moved from joy to calling Trump a fascist? She stood in front of the vice presidential residence in D.C. today and delivered this short but withering attack on a Republican presidential opponent. She called Donald Trump, as we talked about earlier, increasingly unhinged and unstable. Does that move you by the way? Can I ask you? Does that charge move you? Donald Trump has become increasingly unhinged and unstable. Does that make you go, is he? Maybe I need to look into this. She doesn't want anybody looking into it. She's playing to her audience. She cited critical comments made by John Kelly, which we talked about earlier. The vice president quoted Kelly describing Trump as someone who certainly falls into the general definition of a fascist and who had spoken approvingly of Hitler several times. She said her rival wanted unchecked power. And later, during a CNN town hall, she was asked point blank if she believed he was a fascist, and she answered, "Yes, I do." Do you know what occurred to me when I heard that? That's the first time I've ever seen her answer a direct question directly. She had that one down. So the Trump campaign quickly accused the Democratic candidate of peddling lies. She's increasingly desperate. This is what the spokesman Stephen Chung said. And she's flailing, and her campaign is in shambles, so he says. So in the home stretch of the political campaigns, particularly one as tight and hard-fought as the 2024 presidential race, there's a natural tendency for candidates to turn negative. Attacks tend to be more effective in motivating supporters to head to the polls and disrupting the opposing campaigns. For Harris, however, the heavier hand toward Trump stands in contrast to the more optimistic, joyful messaging of the early days of her campaign. Well, the wheels were still on back then. The honeymoon was just starting. So while she did warn of the Democratic convention of a Trump presidency without the guardrails, Harris largely stepped back from President Joe Biden's core campaign message that Trump posed an existential threat to American democracy. So according to political strategist Matt Bennett of the centrist Democratic group Third Way, however, it's clear why Harris was quick this time to amplify Kelly's dark portrait of Trump as a man with authoritarian tendencies. Everything she does now is tactical, he said. The imperative was to make sure as many voters as possible know about what Kelly said about Donald Trump. The vice president's latest remarks came on the heels of this multi-week strategy by her campaign to appeal to the independent voters and moderate Republicans who could be open to supporting the Democratic ticket. Now, I got to tell you, my thought is, any undecided, are there really any undecided people out there? Or are there just people that say, I don't know where I'm going to vote yet, because they don't want to talk about it? I think people are smarter than to be swayed by bullshit like this stuff that the Harris campaign is doing out of desperation. The suburbs around the biggest cities in key battleground states of Philadelphia, Detroit, Milwaukee, and Phoenix, for instance, are populated by college-educated professionals who have traditionally voted Republican, but who polls indicated have doubts about returning Trump to the White House. So her case for how she wins this thing is to create as broad a coalition as possible and to bring over disaffected Republicans, people who just don't feel that they can vote for Trump again. Now, Devin D. Valesco, a 20-year-old independent from Nebraska, is one of those who'd already been convinced by a long list of senior Republicans who worked for then President Trump but now say he is unfit for office. Although she hopes some Republicans will join her in supporting Harris, she worries there is fatigue around the claims made about the former president. Fatigue around those claims. When these reports about Kelly's comments came out, I wasn't shocked. It didn't change much, Mr. Del Valesco told BBC. And Republican strategist Denise Grace Gitsom said voters have been hearing similar rhetoric about Trump since 2016. I heard the thing about him being a Nazi and supporting Hitler back when he was running the first time. So any new allegations were unlikely to move the dial. So if you're voting against Donald Trump because you don't like his personality, you're already a decided voter. But if you're somebody who's looking at the policies and that matters more to you than a vibe or a personality, then you're going to go with the person who you felt did the best under. Wow, my word salad, while they were in the White House. So both Harris and Trump have been sharpening their barbs in recent days. During a swing through the Midwest battleground states on Monday, Harris repeatedly warned of the consequences of a Trump presidency on abortion rights, on health care, on the economy, on U.S. foreign policy. On Friday this week, she's going to hold a rally in Texas, the state she has said most dramatically represents the anti-abortion future if Trump is back in power. So next Tuesday, she's going to shift focus to Washington, D.C., with a rally reportedly planned by on the National Mall, where Trump spoke before some of his supporters and attacked the U.S. Capitol, she said. Now, Trump, meanwhile, has continued his drumbeat of attacks on his Democratic counterpart. At a town hall forum in North Carolina, he said Harris was lazy and stupid, and he became her party nominee because of her ethnicity and gender. He also issued his own warning, saying that we may not have a country anymore if Harris wins. Now, none of these lines are a particular departure for Trump, however, as he's spent most of his campaign attacking Democrats and sticking to his own message, on his core message on immigration, trade, the economy. Harris's closing pitch, meanwhile, directed toward winning over anti-Trump Republicans and independence, isn't without its risks, said Democratic strategist Bennett. You're always shorting one thing to try to help promote something else, he said. The candidate's time and the time spent on advertising are the two most precious commodities, and how you spend those matters. Trump has been a polarizing figure in American politics for more than 8 years now, and most Americans have strongly held and deeply ingrained opinions about the man by now. If anti-Trump sentiment puts Harris over the top on Election Day, her latest strategic emphasis will have paid off. If not, the second guessing will come fast and furious. So, what do you think about that? What do you think about her negative campaigning? What do you think about Harris going to negative campaigning mostly because the wheels are falling off of her campaign? What do some of you have to say? Monica S. says, I think many will vote for him even though they don't want him. Is for the pardons he may be allowed to give. Even though they don't want him. Okay, I see what you're saying. Maybe some of it's for the pardons, yeah. But many people will vote for him even though they don't like him very much. I think you're right. And why did Kelly, says Josh Kemp, why did Kelly not do this? John Kelly make these statements in 2020. I'm a bit surprised by all the former Republicans or people still claiming to be Republicans that are supporting Harris. What are they supporting there? Or are they just against Donald Trump? And you notice most of the Republicans that are supporting Harris, I'm going to make a statement here that is verifiable, that most of these Republicans supporting Kamala Harris are those who either were fired by Trump from the administration or somehow lost some ground under Trump. And they have gone to the other side because they are embittered against Trump. Maybe those particular Republicans are quite compromised. You might have something there, Susie Q. Or maybe they're voted out, says Josh Kemp. Exactly. Let's see, Susie Q. I wanted to see what this statement said. You said, I mean, continuity of government and all. And they don't pull no hanky-panky. Yeah, there you go. And you started that by saying, yes, let's hope the transition is smooth, even if the country isn't. Josh Kemp said, whatever they call you, they are doing. She is doing. You're right about that, Josh. Trump and Vance, and they need to keep doing the same. Harris sounds like Clinton. Yes, she does. Let's see. I'm just looking at some of your other comments in the newspaper, endorsements, things like that. Sean Stroik said, I want mortgage forgiveness. I don't care about what they do with the numbers. There you go. That would be nice, wouldn't it? So, yeah, they're paying themselves. Josh Kemp, you're right. Let's see. Monica says those figures, now I'm trying to think of what I was talking about exactly. Let's see, I'll read your comment. Those figures are not fact-based. They essentially finally forced people to do correct paperwork of people who met the requirements of 10 years of social service and payments, then you received credit. Are you talking about what I read from the government site, which I don't have up in front of me? Yeah, laundering money. You're right, Sean Stroik. Yep, Sean, and Biden did it anyway. He said, fuck the Supreme Court. So, all in all, Josh Kemp, welcome as a new member. Oh, I didn't see that. Hey, Josh Kemp is now a new member on this YouTube channel. Thank you, Josh. Good to have you finally as a member. Glad I won you over. He was undecided until now. So, you're right, Susie Q. Trump's completely denounced Project 2025. He has nothing to do with it, yet they're running a political ad endorsed by Kamala saying that he did. And Tim Walsh just said it yesterday. I think he said that. He repeated the 2025 thing. So anyway, there we are. Do you feel that the wheels, figuratively speaking, that the wheels are falling off the Harris campaign and that she's going to these extremes out of desperation? What do you think is going to happen? Is she going to win or lose? Is Trump going to win or lose? We'll know for sure in 2 weeks. Maybe. Why does it take months to get decisions? It wasn't until the 2020 election, and maybe the challenge by Al Gore over the hanging Chads thing in the 2000 election. Other than those, the results of the election have always been the night of, So what's going to happen if, like Trump has asked, too big to rig? What if Trump gets so many votes that they can't question it? Harris says she's going to anyway. Oops, I don't know what I just did on my phone. That was weird sound. So there we go. That's where we're going to leave it here for tonight. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to go out. We'll come back in with the captain's cabin right after a short break here. A very short break. And we'll talk for a little bit. We'll see where everybody's at and what you're thinking and what you want to contribute, if you want to contribute at all. And so the captain's cabin will last as long as your input, unless it goes past 11 o'clock my time. So everybody, you sit tight. We're going to go out, but we'll be back in just a minute, literally a minute, maybe a few seconds over, and that's about it. So we're going to cut out for a quick break. Everybody, live long and prosper if you have to leave the show now. Otherwise, we'll see you right back here in a minute or so.
Are you looking for a really awesome and amazing graphic designer? How about an illustrator or a photographer? This is Rainey Roberts, and I wanted to tell you how you can get my designer, illustrator husband, Scotty Roberts, to work for you on your project. Do you have an awesome self-published book but no cover, or even worse, a cover that really sucks? Do you need a kick-ass logo for your company or some f***ing awesome graphic designs for your ads or website? Then get in touch with my husband for the best f***ing awesome kick-ass design and illustration. He knows his stuff, and he's been at this for more years than I've been alive. Go to ScottAllenRoberts.com. That's Scott with 2 T's, ALANROBERTS.com to take a look at his online portfolio of work, or call 651-468-8115. Now go out and kick some ass with some kick-ass graphic design.
Hi, my dad. He can take me to Disneyland.
Well, welcome back, folks. Thanks for being here for the show. We're in the after show, which really, because we're not on radio right now, this isn't really an after show right now, but let's stick with tradition. And that's the way we've been doing it for years. So when we're back on radio, this will make more sense, because what we did, if you're newer to the show, we did an hour on air on radio waves. And then when we cut out from radio, we stuck over here on the YouTube channel for the Captain's Cabin, thusly named by all of you folks. So this was our after show, which was not aired on radio, but was right here on YouTube, and that was it. So those of you who are new, that's that. Okay. Well, you know what? If you guys want to, if anybody wants to call in, ours, Susie Q, that's right. Grr, arr, avast, and all of that. So, I launched my, you could say I launched my tattoo business this last week. Not with a lot of fanfare and effort, but I've been working on practicing tattooing for well over 6 months, closer to a year since it's been 2 years ago that Rainey got me the equipment. Then we upgraded it this last year, and I've been practicing, and I did my first skin on tattoo. So we are, who's here? Josh Kemp. Oh, what the number? Oh, what's the number? Oh, I see what you're saying. I thought that was like an expletive. What the hell? Then you use the pound sign. So here, I'll put it up in here. What is my phone is doing some awfully weird things. There you go. Let's put it in here. There you go, Josh. And let's see. Hey, Elderberry, good to see you. So I lost my train of thought. What the hell was I talking about? Oh, tattooing. And so I did my first skin on, we affectionately call them skinny pigs, because I'm still learning how to do it on skin as opposed to fake skin, which is very different. Fake skin is it's tough. It's a little more solid. Real skin is a little different to work with. It's more supple, obviously. And so my first skinny pig, my first skin on tattoo was my son Sam. And he took that phrase from his, I asked him, what do you want? His favorite childhood animated movie, which we've talked about before on this show. Very emotional thing, a very touchy-feely thing. But his favorite show was the animated movie Treasure Planet, which was the adaptation of Robert Louis Stevenson's Treasure Island, we could say loosely, to a science fiction-y format. And he identified with Jim Hawkins and loved the John Silver character in that. And when Sam started getting into his troubles 10 years ago, 8 years ago, and he had a lot of trouble. He had legal trouble, and he had stuff like going on. I would remind him with the line from that movie. I said, do you remember what Long John Silver said to Jim Hawkins? And I'm going to call it up here so I have the ability to quote it without getting it wrong. And this is something that stuck with Sam ever since. There's a quote in here. That's video. I don't want to do the video one. Blah, 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 blah. Here it is. Oh, no, that's not it. Sorry about that. Maybe one of the best places to find it is going to be to go to my own post where I responded to this. But Sam always had a love for this movie and this particular line, because while he was going through his troubles, his legal problems, and all of that, there was a line from this movie that I quoted to him. And I said, son, no matter what's going on, I want you to remember this. And listen to this line from this movie. And I'm just going through, and I've got to find exactly where it was stated here. I think it was on one of the other images here. Kelly Bell. Hang on, guys. Here it is. This was the quote that Sam liked. Now, if you've seen the animated film, I saw you there, by the way, Josh. Just hang on. When I'm done with this, I'll bring you in. In the movie, the ship was under some problems and somebody was killed. They went overboard and into the abyss. Remember, this is in space. It's science fiction now. And Jim Hawkins blamed himself for this, when in actuality was somebody else that did it. But he blamed himself, and he was kind of in despair and very discouraged. And he says to Long John Silver, he says, "Don't you get it?" He says, "I failed. I'm a failure, and I'll never amount to anything." And he turns his back. And Silver does this. He reaches out and he takes his Hawkins by the shoulder. He says, "Now you look here, Jim Hawkins." He says, "You've got the makings of greatness in you, but you've got to take the helm and chart your own course. Stick to it, no matter the squalls. And when the time comes, you get the chance to really test the cut of your sails and show what you're made of. Well, I hope I'm there, catching some of the light coming off you that day." And when I wrote that to Sam, that meant a lot to him, and it stuck with him. And Treasure Planet. I'm not even sure why I brought that up, other than, oh, I know, the tattoo. So my son had me tattoo on his chest right here. It says, and I used some big scripty stuff and made it very artsy, and it says, "You've got the makings of greatness in you," with a skull and crossbones. And that's what Sam wanted. So I don't think it was the best. It's my first tattoo on skin. Even though my tattoos on fake skin looked pretty good. It worked out, and Sam loves it. So, and he's got other tattoos, so I trust his take. Anyway, there it is. So we got Josh Kemp sitting here. Josh, how you doing, brother? Good to see you.
Doing all right. How about yourself?
I'm all right, man.
I might have to
Except
come
for
up there and
my
get it. Well, I've got a toothache myself, but it'll be all right.
That's almost worse.
Yeah. I might have to come up there and get you to do some ink for me. But
Hey, I'd love to. I'd love
I
to.
know I know you got some magnificent drawings. So
Well, thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. I've had some people in tattooing that somebody from Australia, they've got these big courses they do, and quite successful people. And he said the one thing I think you've got going for you, says, is that a lot of people don't. He says you already know how to draw. So all you've got to do now is master the tool, the depths of your pens, of your needles, the speeds, the frequency, the inks, the this and that. It's just learning how to use the tool now. So hopefully that will. I got it down on fake skin. Let's see how it goes on real skin.
well, you can practice on me all you want. So.
Right on, right on. So what's on your mind, man?
Oh, yeah, all the politics, man. We're down to, like you was talking about. It's just gonna get nasty with Kamala.
It is.
That's all you're gonna hear from all the mainstream media. You
Yes.
ain't gonna hear. You ain't gonna hear nothing that's
Nope.
truth.
So what do you think is going to happen? What direction do you think this is taking?
I mean, if Trump stays on point, and whoever's coaching him right now has got him disciplined. If he stays disciplined, I believe he's going to win. And if people turn out like I think they are,
Right.
It seems the Republicans are turning out in the early vote, and you know how Republicans are.
I
On
do. I do.
voter day, they're going to turn out.
Yes. By the
And
way, I'm just going to make a statement because some people popped into the Instagram video. If you're watching over on Instagram, that is the link if you want to call into the show or just come in, sit in the chat room over here and watch it on YouTube. That's the best place to join the chat room is over on YouTube. So even though you can comment everywhere else and you can comment back and forth to people, you can't see any of the chatting going on in the chat room, and nor can they see you. So come on over and join us over there if you'd like. Anyway, go ahead.
but yeah, if she continues the way she's going, she's sinking herself
She is.
mightily with just the same.
And see, here's the thing that worries me. What worries me about that is we like to think that, but she's not going to lose any of the people she already has.
Yeah.
That's the thing. And so it's like, what's going to happen? Is the race really as close as it looks, or there are a lot of people out there that are going to vote against her that we don't even know about?
Well, that's what I was going to say. That I think the internals on both sides know a lot more than me and you.
I think so too. She's acting like somebody who's desperate. And when I see her acting that way, I say, she must know she's not doing very well.
Absolutely. And where was she at? Well, did she actually campaign today? I don't know if she had
She took a day off. It was either yesterday.
Yeah.
No, it was today. I think she took a day off. Oh, she must be exhausted.
Yeah. Joe Biden.
That's the other line.
But you got Trump and Vance just swarming everywhere. And Trump's going to be in, I think he's going to Vegas tomorrow.
I think you're right.
And Trump's going, I think he's going to 3 states tomorrow. And you've got Vance going to 3 different states. So, which.
Yeah.
Tim Walz, he might as well be out trying to shoot somebody like
my
Dick
God.
Cheney.
I listen. Walz brought up the 2025 thing again yesterday or earlier today. He's brought up other things. Walz is an idiot. I'm sorry. I do not know how he has maintained position as governor and was reelected as governor. It's unbelievable.
And you're in Minnesota, right?
I lived in Minnesota most of my life, but we're over in western Wisconsin. We crossed the border and we're over here. We're basically less than an hour, 45 minutes from downtown.
I knew you used to be in Minnesota.
Yeah.
But, oh man, I don't see how they just keep reelecting idiots up there.
Yeah. See, now Susie Q brings up Walz brought CCP people to his classroom in 1990 when he was a teacher. See, Susie Q, ideologically, we have some problems with that. When it comes down to it, I got to tell you, and this is not a criticism of what you said, Susie Q, but I look at stuff like that and I go, I don't care. What I care about is whether she can do the job, whether he can do the job, whether they're decent people, and of course, we all know, I know where I fall on that stuff. So I don't care what he did in 1990. There's times I have appreciated the Chinese. I've got one of my books. Which book is it? The Exodus Reality, sitting over there. That is translated to Chinese through my publisher. We had my agent had, if you could put a Chinese twist in this book writing, it was a novel a few years ago. She told me this. She said, we have some Chinese investors that might really like that. I go, I could do that. This is before the thing became really, the whole Chinese thing just blew up all over the place. So, and I think the Chinese people are wonderful people. I think it's the government there that we have to, obviously. So,
Well, I mean, it's the same way with Russia, which that's a weird fellowship, Russia and China. Russia would rather, they're more of an isolationist country,
yeah.
to be honest. But, uh, and I'm sure I'll get hit up about that. But
Yeah.
it's,
Well, and that.
uh,
Well, all right, brother. I think what I'm
well,
going to do, I'm going to start wrapping this show for tonight.
well, sounds
And
good.
I
It was
appreciate you
good.
calling in, man.
Good to talk to you. Well, I'll ask this real quick. Rainey's still
Sure.
doing her stuff, tumblers and
Who
stuff.
is who?
Rainey.
Oh, yeah.
She
Yeah,
still
she is. You're
okay.
talking
Uh,
tumblers, right?
yes, sir.
So, yep, she's still
Uh,
doing all of this stuff.
okay.
So,
I'll get a hold of her and
cool.
work some stuff out. So,
Right on, brother.
all right, brother.
Thanks for calling in, man. Thanks for being here. I appreciate you.
All right. Appreciate it.
All right, Josh. See you later. All right, everybody else, guess what? It's really time to get out of here. For me, it's 11:15 my time. Oh. Look who calls in right now. He heard me say, I'm going to sign off. Do I or don't I? There he is.
Actually, I didn't hear you say that. You were still talking with
It was
sorry.
Sean, yeah. Or Josh, yeah. I said, Josh, I'm going to start wrapping this show up, so I'm going to let you go.
Yeah, I had you were still talking to him when I clicked the link for the show or for the call in.
Hey, Susie Q, you didn't sour anything at all. Don't even worry about that. We're just talking here. We're just talking. We're just conversing. I got no problem with anything you said. It's just something else I wanted to say on that topic. That's all.
Yeah.
Yeah, JP, not Bauer. Everybody thought it was Bauer coming in. He'll come in 2 minutes to the hour, at the top of the hour.
Probably. If you say his name 3 times, it's like Beetlejuice.
Yes.
Yeah. Sorry. Yeah. No, it's interesting how people get about this stuff. Just the whether it's Trump derangement syndrome type stuff or just how deeply they get into the Harris camp or whatever. Like, look, I may not agree with whatever choice you make in terms of voting. I'm always going to agree with your right to vote, and I'm going to support you getting out and voting.
Right.
And that's how it should be with everybody. If people ask me who I'm voting for, I'm like, I'm not telling you because it's none of your damn business.
Who you voting for?
No, I'm not telling you because it's none ya. And the show just went another hour. No, it's not because I'm not the professor. But it was interesting, your favorite Star Trek crew member who is so active on Facebook, George Takei. He had posted a thing about how the NRA got completely slammed after getting fact checked about trying to give shit about Waltz, and whatnot. And I said, look, either way, the man looked like a monkey trying to fuck a football with that shotgun while he was doing it. And there were some people laughing who laughed at it, and this is on Takai's page, right?
Yeah.
And there's some people who laughed at it. Some random lady comes in, you look like a criminal. I'm like, I'm sorry if my unofficial military jargon offended your sensibilities, ma'am.
Yeah.
But the fact of the matter is that guy is a walking soup sandwich.
He is.
And then she comes back and she's like, Go away. I'm like, is this your first day on the internet? You commented on my comment. Like,
Yeah.
you have all these people that just don't get how things work. They go so far down the rabbit
And the
hole with
people who
things.
get so mad at you, Takai's site is a prime example. I followed his page 10 years ago.
Yeah.
Whenever it was that he was first on there. And
Oh,
he
yeah.
was talking Star Trek and movies and stuff like that.
Talked about his, his play that he was in and all that stuff.
Like, talked about his childhood with the internment camp, the Japanese internment camps here in the States.
Yeah.
Totally with him on that stuff. Totally loved it. Then he started getting, once Trump was in office, the last 5-6 years,
super
he's
political,
really foul.
And
so I come in and I commented on all the old stuff he did. And now he makes a political comment. I'll make a comment on stuff. I go, well, hey, and I'm not trolling, though people call me a troll. You're just trolling. I said, well, what makes a troll? Am I just a troll because I disagree with him? Well, you shouldn't be, or why are you even here if you don't agree? I said, because I followed his page and we're friends on social media. And I said, I've always appreciated George for other things. I said, I disagree with him on this. And so I made a statement. I said, is his post not open to the public?
Right.
Is his post not available for all his followers to comment on if they'd like to? I didn't see George put in the header, if you disagree with me, no need to comment here. Or go away.
Exactly.
I said, I'm stating an opposite opinion. I said, can you handle an opposite opinion?
Well, and that's the thing is there's so many people out there who can't handle an opposite opinion, it's not just things like it's like with everything. The latest thing I'll go with is for my case in point thing is somebody back on a page back from North Dakota, which usually talks a lot about trying to end property taxes and various other things, and kind of does legal watchdog stuff on politicians within the state, within the town. Somebody hops on there, and now look, I totally get, I actually understand both sides of the argument with things like bathrooms and transgendered stuff and things like that. I understand both arguments. There are things on one side I agree with. There's things on the other side I agree with. There's things on one side that I don't agree with, and on the other side I don't agree with. Right? There are valid points and there are invalid points on both sides. And so there was a school out there that took it upon itself to like, okay, well, so we're basically going to do gender neutral bathrooms, and quite honestly, I think this is probably like the best middle of the road solution that you could ever come up with. And there's actually restaurants out there that have done this in general and things like that, where they basically, you no longer have men's rooms, you no longer have women's rooms, you now have a centralized area with individual bathrooms with individual stalls. And it's not like a public restroom stall now where you walk in and it's like a thin stamped sheet metal, like wall to doors
with your undies around your ankles.
These are you're on three sides. You're surrounded by cinder blocks, and you have a floor to to ceiling length door. You are in a room, right?
Yes,
and like people are losing their shit about this. And you have a common wash area, like it's a large sink area for everybody to wash.
I don't have any problem with that. I don't.
And
really
it's
care.
like, why do you have an issue with that? Oh, well, somebody could hear you doing stuff, or somebody could hear the crinkling of a wrapper for a tampon, maxi pad, whatever, right? It's like, it's so embarrassing, or it could be, and it's like, you have a quarter bath in your house. It's the same damn thing. There's just 10 of them.
That's all it is.
It's
and
all
when you
it
got
is.
Company over, and there's 12 people out in your living room, and you go to the powder room to take a shit. You know what? We used to joke around at parties at our house and go, "I'm in the bathroom. Don't listen to me."
Right? Yeah.
So,
yeah, but like these people go down this whole thing, and they get so wrapped around the axle that they can't look to see if something is actually even a viable solution that is an acceptable middle ground. Well, we're just pandering to whatever. You know what? There is a little pandering there. But the fact of the matter is, if you have this argument going on, whatever the topic is, right? And we're just using this as a particular example, whatever the topic is.
Yeah. CCQ makes a point about men and women should have different bathrooms. I agree with that overall. But there are settings where there are joint bathrooms because it's handled well.
Right.
There's some offices that have them years ago, before this was even an issue.
And Suda Q, I understand what you're talking about there. What I'm talking about is this is a large room, right? So you'd have a large room where you would have all of the individual bathrooms, right? It is literally an individual bathroom. Like it's like little rooms. It's not stalls. It is literally little rooms. And then you have a large wash station, it'd be like a circular trough with water spigots on it or whatever. And then you have open door coming from the main area or the hallway, right? And there is no door that closes. So if anything at all goes down in that bathroom, everyone is going to know. Like you can't, like if you have a regular, and people have been making this argument, if you have a regular bathroom, you have the door going into the latrine, right? Your standard heavy, hooked onto the hydraulic, or spring loaded thing to bring it closed automatically and stuff like that. And then you have further the stalls in there to muffle things, to distance, to obfuscate, so people can't see what's going on. This actually discourages stuff like that. You're going to have a higher likelihood of more people being around, and people are going to be less inclined to pull shady shit. Like, well, okay, there's going to be people who are consenting individuals that are going to go into those things. Yeah, that's a different story altogether. But like,
well, see, to me,
it's like look at something that's viable. Listen to the argument, sand table it. Test it out. See if it's something that's potentially viable. Just because it differs from how you normally think or how you feel, doesn't mean that there's not some level of logic and sensibility to it. Right. And it's worth just listening.
I see it as those restrooms where say you're in a mall or someplace where you go down a big open hallway, and there's a men's room, but it's only got a couple of toilets in it. Yeah. And a woman's room and a unisex and so on and so on. Baby changing. It's just another communal area that has separate rooms going off of it. So I don't have as big a problem with that. I have a problem with the gender issue that's brought into it.
Right. So. Right. But it's like, if you can just take a couple of minutes to take a step back, listen to an argument, look at it, literally do a pros and cons and do it objectively, people will find so many more solutions. People will have such fewer disagreements. But we've lost that ability, and it bleeds into everything, whether it's bathrooms, whether it's politics, and people get so deeply rooted in their belief. It's like almost like it becomes a part of their identity. And I think that's one of the things that when you have something that is such a huge part now of your identity, anything that challenges it, it almost leaves a person feeling like, if this challenges my opinions and defeats it, I've lost my identity. Who am I? What do I even have anymore? And it's like, but it doesn't. People forget that the truth of it is that you've centered your identity around this, rather than centering your identity around being a logical thinker, a compassionate person, someone who is educated and can look at things from different angles, whatever the case may be. Instead of that, you hitch your wagon to the star of that particular identity thing, and it becomes everything to you. And that's dangerous. It is so dangerous. And people don't even realize that they do it. It's like, come on, dude, come off it. So it's like, yeah, verbal fisticuffs in all kinds of forums and threads and things like that. You're just like, okay, dude, whatever, man.
And that's the way I get. I got into it with a guy that a little bit that on Facebook that claimed he was calling bullshit on everything I was saying, and I said I don't think so. And he said, "Well, and he gave his whole history of who he was.
Mm-hmm.
Well, for 35 years, I was a writer with the Wall Street Journal. A journalist with the Wall Street Journal, and this and that and the other. And I check my facts out with precision because of my work." And I said, well, I struggle with the bias of Wall Street Journal some days.
Mm-hmm.
I said, I think Wall Street Journal is fairly biased. And I said, so what you're admitting to me is that you were a journalist for 35 years with unimpeachable standards in being pretty biased about your topics. And I said, so, and of course he didn't like that. And I said, well, since you gave your history, I said, I did this, master's, this, that, other thing. These are the things I've done, the books I've written books, and I've got 5 authored books. I said, not self-published.
Just because you've done those things doesn't mean you're not biased.
Yeah, that's right.
It's the fact of the matter. It just means you did those things. And you may have done impeccable work based off of the facts that you gathered. But if you're doing all of your research from a biased standpoint and you're falling prey to the confirmation or research bias, then your work is biased.
Let me ask you a question.
Yeah.
If you've heard anything about this, one particular thing he brought up, I made the statement because I had heard it somewhere and I did the mistake of not checking on it because I don't know for sure.
Mm-hmm.
The woman that claimed Trump raped her 30 years ago in the elevator or something like that, and it was thrown out or something, but then she got the civil suit. She won the civil suit.
Yeah.
Which gave her $92 million. And the civil suits being those suits that say, well, they couldn't different legal standards, rigorous standards. And so they're basically said Trump raped her without being able to say he raped her.
They're not criminal. They're civil. And it focuses more on the emotional damages and the time lost and all of those things. Yeah.
And it's interesting that she didn't have enough evidence to convict him in the criminal trial. There wasn't enough evidence. What evidence? And there was no evidence. It was words against words. And so I said, I believe that this woman had also tried this with several other fairly established, well-to-do, wealthy men before. And he said, well, that's just a blatant lie. I said, no, it's not a lie. I said, but you got me, you've concerned me enough that I'm going to go check my facts on that. Right. Have you heard anything about that?
I have not.
In fact, I had heard that somewhere that she had done this before.
I'll be completely honest. There's so many things with the trials, the various trials and stuff that have gone around Trump, that I have, unless there is a hard line criminal obviousness kind of thing, the potentiality for that.
Yep.
I've kind of tuned it all out because all of it ends up sounding incredibly well. It just smacks completely of political chicanery.
Yes,
and and that's the thing. And like, what's really sad about that is that, you know what? For all we know, right? He could have. Okay, we weren't there 35 years ago in the elevator seeing all this stuff. There aren't any tapes left. If there were security cameras, there's no body of evidence to support it. There's no body of evidence to refute
all there was
was
her claim.
All there is the claim. So we don't really know, but like, these things have happened at such politically opportune times, and in such politically opportune ways that if there really was something there, people out there are going to be less inclined to care about it. Why? Because it sounds like political.
Well, Jason,
chicanery.
just yesterday, for the first time, I saw 2 ads that were back-to-back breaks on a news network.
Yeah.
A cable news network, that were women sitting looking like this into the camera, talking about their rape experience with Donald Trump.
Mm-hmm.
And how this man cannot become president. I was too afraid and ashamed, and I never said anything about it, and this and that. But he's a rapist. He's a sexual predator, and you cannot vote him into the 2 women doing that. And that was also part of my saying the Kamala Harris campaign is in desperation tailspin mode if they're pulling out ads like that. So
yeah. And you know, that's the thing is it like are the people in the ads anybody that's been in any of the trials, or is this just random people that came up, like
just random women?
Right. And that's the thing is because you don't want to be disrespectful to someone's potential experience and not have compassion, or you don't want to be a situation where you're lacking empathy, because that's a heavy thing, right? Those accusations are a heavy
there's
thing.
a side of me I want to be empathetic to that, but there's a side of me that says just because your mouth is moving doesn't mean you're telling the truth. I don't know you well enough to know what your motivations might be for not telling the truth.
Yeah.
So,
and it's just sad that everything's coming to like that, things like that. And honestly, when you brought up all the repetitive stuff that they keep doing, and you said this is it's Alinskyism. It is. It is. I mean, all of that stuff is straight up right out of Rules for Radicals by Saul Alinsky. Those are the exact kind of tactics. That's the exact kind of tactics that even the Bolsheviks and the Soviets, and then the Chinese Communist Party during the Chinese Revolution, and the Great Cultural Revolution. Those are the exact same kinds of tactics that they pull with all of that.
Yes.
If you repeat something enough, it is going to become fact, and it's going to become burned in people's minds. Right. And we have such a problem with objectivity in things today, and that it's disconcerting and it's disheartening. Yes. It goes back to people developing these deep-seated just opinions without even being willing to hear anything or look at anything.
Yep.
There was I have a friend of mine, she posts stuff, and I will hit back with things, and I'll be like, well, hey, this is all well and good, right? Jesus.
Yeah. Thank you, Rapid Dog.
Right. That's all well and good, but here's this other aspect that needs to be discussed, that needs to be talked about, that needs to be looked at, that aren't being considered when these arguments are being made. And I think this particular post that I'm referring to is talking about it's not that we have a problem against Christians, it's Christian nationalism, which, I mean, there are some problems with that, especially if you are in a country that has no national religion, that, there is no government sponsored religion. Everybody has the freedom to pursue whatever. Like, I can see problems with Christian nationalism, just how I could if it was a different religion. Right. And it was like that, and it's not about we're not the fight isn't about fighting something with homosexuality, but it's homophobia, like be it whatever. And I'm like, look, that's all well and good, but you got to look at the other side of this argument, the fact that there are people on the other side of this argument who literally turn people off with how they approach it, rather than having a polite conversation. The only tool that they have in their toolbox is a hammer, and every problem is a nail when that's all the only tool that you have.
Exactly.
And you don't win any allies. You don't win any, you don't get people to at least listen, because you're sitting there shoving it in their face and beating them across the head with it. If I come in and I said something, talking about, let's talk about race or something, right? And I bring up, the problems that LBJ's Great Society, has created within the welfare system and within the nuclear family and various things like that, those second and third order effects, immediately I'll have people like try to label me as racist. And it's like, no,
right.
No, we're talking about programs that were put into place under, with the stated goal, to the public of, trying to correct things. But it has created so many other problems within those communities that, you have to look at these things. You have to think about how people are creating policy and pushing policies and getting things voted in. That's not racism. In fact, all of that stuff has probably turned out to be more racist than I'm sure a lot of people who signed to pass it even imagined that it would or could potentially be. And but you throw something out there like that and immediately you're a racist. I got into a long drawn out comment panel with this one gal who always pops in and has to say something against me, which is it's whatever, but it's like, have you ever looked into the Great Society stuff with Lyndon Baines Johnson?
Yeah.
Have you ever read any of the stuff from Thomas Sowell?
Yes, I have.
Right. Well, yeah, I know you have, but it's like when I confront her with things like that, doesn't even mention it, comes back with some sort of whatever. Yep. Well, you have to admit that you have privilege, and it's like you have created this whole identity that you have just deeply rooted yourself with, that you can't even stop to take a look at something that might change how you look at things a little bit when you have a broader picture and a deeper scope of the information.
Right.
And it's how do you even combat that? Like, other than eventually being like, yeah, all right, I'm ignoring you. Because that person's just going to go off and keep spewing all their crap.
The other way I've seen that a lot of these people argue is that you're making a point about a specific thing they said something about, a specific thing. You make a specific reply to it, and they'll come back, yeah, well, that's nothing because, the whole limousine story when he was going to his court case reflects back on the thing he did 30 years ago with the 5 guys and this and that and those buildings and those people he didn't pay and all those women he raped and all that money he stole and the whole Trump University thing. And they bring up 15 different charges that they've heard against Trump. And
but they haven't looked at everything around
them, hey, you put so much in there, it would take me an hour to unpack your response.
Well, and they probably, whether knowingly or unknowingly, do that purposefully, because that's how they've learned to.
I responded once to somebody. I just said, "Oh yeah," and that's all I said.
That's it. Oh yeah. And this lady tried to tell me, she's like, you're not even, you're probably somebody who I certainly wouldn't consider you an ally. And, she's, talking about how she was half African, half Irish. I wanted to go down a whole rabbit hole of like, yeah, do you have any clue about your Irish lineage? Like, do you know anything about the shit that Oliver Cromwell pulled with the Irish? Do you know where mulatto comes from? Like, do you understand any of this?
No, she doesn't.
And she doesn't. She doesn't. But I was like, I'm not even going to go down that path with her.
Yeah.
But it's like, it's like, I was like, look, lady, don't even try to tell me the stuff like, not an ally. You want to try to take all these things, going back in a timeline so far. I'll tell you right here and now, I had family members rotting away in Andersonville in the fight against slavery and oppression. So don't try to tell me, that it's like, I don't know anybody's shit.
All I would say is there are very good people on both sides.
Oh my God, they would lose their shit. Well, and that's the thing is, it's like when you brought up
there are some swine I will not cast my pearl before.
Right. Yeah. It's like when people have been like how they keep bringing up the Hitler comment thing. It's like, okay, first of all, what are the first 5 sentences before that statement? What are the next 5 sentences after that statement? It's just like when you're reading a passage out of the Bible, you have so many literalist, Bible thumpers out there who take one particular verse and, oh, well, this means this. And, if you put kittens in burlap sacks on a Tuesday, the world will be covered in brimstone. Like whatever it is, right?
I know that verse.
Did you, right? Yeah. Did you read the first 2 verses before that verse and then the one that came after it? Because that provides all of the context and the further. You didn't, did you? Right? Like people don't want to look at that stuff. The simple fact of the matter, like you said, is as much as we all hate it, because we all hate the guy. And for the love of God, if any of you out there are Austrian, let your kid go to art school, right?
That's right.
But Jesus, Mary, and Joseph, let them paint. We had one guy get rejected from art school, and now everybody just wants to leave the artists alone. Nobody wants to do anything. No. But it's like, if the man had stopped at pulling Germany out of the absolute, morass of Weimar Republic Germany, where people were paying for loaves of bread with literal wheelbarrows of money, who were heating their homes with stacks of money because their currency was absolutely worthless. If he had stopped there, they'd still be building statues to the guy today. But he didn't, because he was a psycho.
He didn't know when to quit.
Well, it's too bad he was a megalomaniac, but it's like,
right.
The fact of the matter is, the man pulled an entire nation out of such horrible economic depravity. Like, and not only that, but like what had been done to Germany following the Treaty of Versailles. I mean, like literally all of the other countries basically came in and raped Germany
and pissed on them. Yeah.
And it's like, if he came in and he turned that around before he ever started knocking down anybody's door and being like, oh, look at these bodies over here at this radio station that are clearly Polish dudes, German criminals that they dressed up the dead bodies of. Like, before he ever pulled any of that crap, before he ever pulled any of the ghettos and all of that stuff, like Kristallnacht, Night of the Long Knives, Night of the Long Knives wasn't related to Kristallnacht. That Night of the Long Knives is where he went and got rid of all of his political appointments. But it's like, if they had stopped with just the economic stuff, if you just look at that,
he'd probably be praised in history.
It's right. It's a fact. He did some good shit for Germany. Like
it is a fact. But when you start,
we don't like it.
Races,
we don't have to like it.
Right. Kind of outweigh the balance of the good that you did.
Exactly. Exactly. And it's just like,
on that note, I got to end. We got to get out of here.
Yes.
We have gone from ending at 10:43. It is now 11:17. So, Professor Patrick. So,
now, I mean, shit. Somebody's gonna come in here and just
that's right.
Ramble. Right. I only apologize to the viewers that I do not have the mastery of the alliteration that Professor Bauer has.
Yes. By the way, Susie Q, my eyes are not tired. This is the results of the surgery. My wife looked at me yesterday at this eye and she said, that eye looks worse than it was before the surgery. And it does.
Jesus.
So this is not tired. This is my eye all day long. So
you got the extended warranty plan on that, right?
yeah, there is a there is a they'll redo. Just don't want to go through another fucking 3 months of this again.
Right.
But it's that or my eye's going to look like this the rest of my life. So
I mean, there's a little bit
when
of
I yawned,
Forrest Whitaker vibe. You might be able to play into that.
I could be a Jedi Master of some kind, I think.
Right. Yeah, you could be a rebel.
Yeah, Idi Amin. So I didn't know Idi Amin had a sleepy eye. So anyway, we digress.
Oh yes, horribly.
So, but I must go. I must let you go. Don't you hate that when you're talking to somebody and you're and you don't want to go, you want to keep talking? They go, well, I better let you go now. It's like, oh no, I'm good. I'm sure you're busy today. Oh no, I'm good. I got the day off. I could talk all day. And so, well, Jason, I know I know you need to get going, so
I do actually.
I'm going to call this show a wrap.
Sounds like a plan,
here, brother.
Always a pleasure.
Appreciate it. See you on,
have a good one.
maybe
Take
on
care.
Friday.
All righty.
See you later. Everybody else, thank you for being here. Thanks for being part of this program. Thanks for being part of my show. This is, of course, as most of you know who are regulars, this can happen in the captain's cabin. We sometimes get rolling on a bit. So thank you for being here. And we will see you again, knock on wood, on Friday. If all goes well. It was a good day today. I was feeling myself today. So, wait. Does that mean I'm going to die in the night now? What do they say? You know, a lot of people, when they feel really good, they die. It's like the last hurrah. Well, I don't think that's what it is. I just felt good. I got a better night's sleep last night and blah, blah, blah. So I'm now ready to go to bed again because I've been awake for about 20 hours and I'm about done. So I'm waking up at 3 o'clock. What's with that? That come with just being, that's my old man card now. It's 3 o'clock. Wake up. So live long and prosper. Yes, Susie, indeed. So all of you, once again, thanks for being here. Thanks for being part of my life and part of the show. And until next time, live long and prosper.